reading Chapter 16 in our ongoing book, Master Frisky, by Clarence Hawkes. Can you believe after today we only have one chapter left? But don't you worry, I have another book full of doggy stories all lined up for us. If you want to read along, you can find the link to the ebook in the description below. Chapter 16. Two dogs go frogging, but do something better. One bright May morning, about the middle of the month, when the air was fragrant with the scent of the swamp pink, and a few early buttercups fringed the roadway, Old Spot and Master Frisky started for the swamp for frogs. And who should they meet upon the way but Dolly and Dot? "Oh, there's Master Frisky," cried both of the little girls at once. When they saw him, "Let's pet him." So Master Frisky ran up and stood very still while they patted his head and stroked his long, soft coat. The little girls thought everything of him, for he was always good to them, and did not scare them with deep growls or tear their skirts with his teeth, as some of the other dogs did. Dolly and Dot were twins, and they looked so much alike that even their own mother was not always sure which was which. This morning they had on some new pink and white dresses, bright stockings, and new shoes that their father had gotten them the day before, and each also wore the cutest little white sunbonnet with lace upon it. They were the prettiest little girls in the whole town, and not spoiled a little bit by their beauty. They were carrying a big basket between them, and they were going to the swamp to pick cowslips for their mother. When they reached the swamp, the two dogs left the little girls to pick cowslips, while they went where the ditch was, to broad and deep, to look for frogs. When they had found a place that suited Old Spot, they lay down in the grass and kept very still for a long time, watching the water. By and by, the biggest green old bullfrog that Master Frisky had ever seen poked his head up from under a lily pad and looked about him. The sunlight made him wink and blink, and he bobbed up and down and looked very queer. At a signal from Spot, both dogs dove for him, but quick as a flash he disappeared, and although Master Frisky kept his head under the water until he sputtered and choked, he could see nothing of him, and finally they came out dripping and panting. They had hardly shaken themselves off when he popped up again, winking and blinking, and looking straight at them. He said in the plainest of frog language, "Got wet, got wet." This was more than the dogs could stand, and so they both dove for him again, but he disappeared as quickly as before. When they came out again and sat upon the bank to rest, he poked his head up once more and croaked, "Got wet, got wet." "What does he say?" asked Old Spot. "He says we got wet," replied Frisky. "The old rascal," said Spot with a growl. "We will teach him a lesson. Let's make believe we go off." And so they started away through the grass, barking as they went, that the old frog might hear them. But they only went a short distance, and then crept back very still and lay quiet in the grass. Soon the old frog came up again, and thinking that the dogs were gone, he hopped out upon a log to sun himself and catch flies. Presently Mother Frog came out too, and Father Frog told her how he had fooled the dogs, and they both had a good laugh over it. Old Spot was just about to give the signal to spring, when Master Frisky heard a cry that made his breath come quick. It was, "Oh, Dolly, come and help me! I'm drowning!" "Quick, Spot, quick!" cried Master Frisky, as his sharp bark sounded, and the friends set off in the grass at a gallop. Poor Dot had found a fine yellow cowslip upon the bank of the ditch where the water was quite deep, and in leaning over to pick it, had fallen headfirst into the water. Dolly ran as fast as she could, and reached down her hand to her sister, but she leaned too far, and with a scream and a splash, she too went into the water, just as the dogs came racing up. In they plunged, and each grabbed a little girl by her sash, but the bank was quite steep, and the water deep, and so it was a terrible pull to get them out. But the dogs strained and tugged, and the little girls caught up in the long grass, and finally Master Frisky got Dolly upon the bank. He then went to the assistance of Old Spot, who stood on his hind legs, pushing Dot as far up the bank as possible. Frisky got hold of her dress and pulled and tugged until finally she too was safe. Then Dolly hugged and kissed her lots, and they both hugged the dogs. Dot said, "Dolly, I'm glad the water didn't get you." "And I'm glad the water didn't get you," replied Dolly. They were all covered with dirty water and their new dresses were spoiled, but they were so glad that they were safe that they did not care. "I don't want to pick cowslips anymore," said Dolly. "Nor I," said Dot. "Let's go home." So they took the basket between them and started for home, the dogs trotting along by their side. When they reached home, they told their mother how they had fallen in the water and that the dogs had saved them. She took both in their lap and hugged and kissed them a great deal. And you may be sure that she petted the dogs and told them, "Good dogs," over and over again. Then she put on her hat and with Dolly and Dot and the two dogs, came over to tell me all about it. I knew that something uncommon had happened by the way that Master Frisky leaped about and barked, but old Spot was very dignified as usual. "What do you think?" said their mother to me as soon as she could speak, for she had hurried so that she was all out of breath. "My dear little girls fell into the ditch this morning, and these brave dogs rescued them." "Pulled us both out with their teeth and didn't hurt a bit," said the twins in chorus. I was much astonished and very pleased, for I loved Dolly and Dot too, and at the same time was glad to have the dogs do them such a good turn. So I patted them both and said, "Good dogs," until they looked proud enough to burst. Then the little girls went home, but soon came back bringing a fine ham bone that they gave the dogs. Master Frisky and old Spot lay under the elm tree for a long time, gnawing their bone and talking. "What a fine day we have had," said Frisky. "That's so," said Spot. "I'm so glad we happened along when we did. What a terrible thing it would have been if they had been drowned." "I wonder what became of the old frog," said Frisky. "Why, I had forgotten all about him," said Spot, "and I don't much care. It's lots more fun to save little girls, like Dolly and Dot, than it is to hunt frogs." "That is so," said Frisky. "This is the best day that we have ever had together." And the friends munched away at their bone with much satisfaction. "Ah, how sweet and brave of Frisky and Spot to save Dolly and Dot. I love this story. I have a river in my backyard, but I've never fallen into it, though. I have fallen into my pool, twice, and needed rescuing, but Mom and Dad were right there to help me out. Daddy says that they're going to put in a ramp for the next time the pool is open, so I can climb out on my own. Secretly, though, I like it when they're there to take care of me. It makes me feel safe knowing they're there." "Shh! Don't tell them I said so, though. They want me to be an independent pup." That's all for today, so be sure to join in next Friday for the last chapter we're reading. And don't forget to come back on Monday for our next Music Monday song. And on Wednesday, we're starting a new wiki topic for the month of October. Exciting! Thanks for hanging out with me today. Bye!